Before sunrise in August 2018, a quiet Colorado neighborhood appeared completely normal. But a doorbell camera captured a man making repeated trips between his garage and truck, nervously checking the street around him. That man was Chris Watts. What he loaded into the truck was his pregnant wife and his 2 young daughters, all already dead. He then drove to a remote oil site where he buried his wife and disposed of his daughters before returning home as if nothing had happened. When it was over, he returned home, cleaned up, and continued with his day as though nothing had happened. Later that same day, something even more disturbing unfolded. Standing outside his home, speaking directly to television cameras, Watts pleaded for help in finding his missing family. He asked for their safe return, claiming he had no idea where they were. But almost immediately, something about his demeanor felt off. Within less than 48 hours, investigators began uncovering inconsistencies, surveillance footage, and small pieces of evidence that slowly unraveled the story he was trying to tell. Yet long before that morning, there were signs that something inside the Watts household had begun to fracture. Looking back, the cracks had been there all along. Chris Watts was 33 years old and lived in Frederick, Colorado, a quiet suburban community about an hour north of Denver. He worked as an operator for Anadarko Petroleum. To most people, he appeared ordinary, fit, quiet, polite. The kind of neighbor you might wave to, but never truly know. His wife, Shanann Watts, was very different. She was outgoing, energetic, and highly active on social media. Shanann ran a home business, promoting supplements through Thrive, building a following of more than 80,000 people on Facebook. She frequently shared videos and photos of their daily lives, birthday celebrations, family dinners, and moments with their children. From the outside, the family seemed happy. They had 2 daughters, Bella, who was 4, and Celeste, known as Cece, who was 3. In the summer of 2018, Shanann was also 15 weeks pregnant with their 3rd child, a boy they had already named Nico. But behind that carefully presented image, serious problems were growing. Financially, the couple was struggling. Court records would later reveal they were roughly $70,000 in debt and had even received a foreclosure notice for their home. During that summer, Shanann spent 5 weeks in Arizona for work, trying to stabilize their finances. While she was away, Chris began an affair with a co-worker, Nicole Kessinger. By the time Shanann returned home in August, everything had changed. Chris wasn't just involved in an affair, he had developed strong feelings for someone else, and was beginning to envision a life without his family. Shanann sensed the shift. She confided in friends that Chris had become distant and cold, and she feared their marriage was falling apart while she was pregnant. In the early hours after Shanann returned home from a trip on August 13, an argument took place inside their house. At some point during that confrontation, Chris Watts strangled Shanann in their bedroom. What followed would shock the entire country. After killing his wife, Watts went upstairs to his daughter's rooms, where they had been sleeping, and smothered them in their beds. Then came a series of actions that revealed a chilling level of detachment. He loaded their bodies into his work truck and drove to a remote oil site known as Survey 319. There, he buried Shanann in a shallow grave and placed his daughters inside 2 separate crude oil tanks. Later that day, when Shanann missed a prenatal appointment, her friend Nicole Atkinson grew concerned and contacted the police. Officer Scott Coonrod from the Frederick Police Department responded to conduct a welfare check. What happened next was investigators later reviewed that footage. One thing stood out almost immediately. Something about Chris Watts didn't feel right. Not in the way a grieving husband typically behaves. When Watts arrived home from work, he appeared calm, almost detached. As he walked through the house with Officer Coonrod, he pointed out rooms and belongings as though he were giving a casual tour. The house looked normal, beds made, toys scattered neatly, no obvious signs of a struggle. But 2 details stood out. The sheets on the master bed had been freshly changed, and Shanann's phone, something she rarely put down, was found tucked behind a pillow. Not missing. Not stolen. Hidden. Additionally, we are presented with the subtle cues of Chris's forethought cover story.
How much time to leave there?
No, here.
Usually between 5:30 and 6.
Alright. And was Shanann here then?
Yes. Yeah, we're just going back.
Does she usually watch the kids, or do you have daycare watch them?
She usually watches the kids if they're not at school.
Okay. You guys having any kind of issues, marital issues, or?
We're going through a separation.
You are? And how's that going?
It's going
Civil for the most part, or?
Additionally, we are presented with the subtle cues of Chris's forethought cover story, being that his wife simply ran off with the kids after a breakdown
in the marriage. Watts insisted everything in the marriage was fine. No arguments, no problems, no other woman. Within hours, the FBI joined the investigation. When surveillance footage from a neighbor showed Watts loading his truck early that morning, long before he claimed to have last seen Shanann, his story began to collapse.
situation.
Like when I got home yesterday, it was like a ghost town. Like she wasn't here, kids weren't here. I have no idea like where they went. Right now it's you got K9 units, the sheriff's department. Everybody's like they're doing their best right now to figure out like if they can get a scent. If she wasn't here, like where did she go? Like once I got here, it was like, all right, who can I call? I called her 3 times, texted her about 3 times just to say, you know, what's going on? Like if she's vanished, like I want her back so bad. I want those kids back so bad. Right now, I don't even want to just like throw anything out there. Like
within 24 hours, he was sitting across from FBI agents. On August 15, Chris Watts agreed to take a polygraph test. He failed. What followed was an interrogation that has since been studied by criminologists, investigators, and true crime analysts around the world. And the reason it stands out is because of what Watts chose to do when the pressure mounted. He didn't truly confess. Instead, he shifted the blame. He told investigators that he had walked into the bedroom and found Shanann harming one of their daughters. He claimed he snapped that he strangled Shanann in a moment of rage to stop her. He said that by the time he reached the other child, it was already too late. He framed himself as someone reacting to a horrific situation. Investigators didn't believe him. The evidence told a very different story. Chris Watts was arrested on August 15, 2018, facing multiple charges, including 3 counts of first-degree murder, unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and tampering with the human body. Using cell phone data, GPS tracking from his work truck, and records from Anadarko Petroleum.
So the court has considered the arguments made by the attorneys. The court has considered the statements made by the victims in this case. The court's going to find that the plea agreement is fair and reasonable under the circumstances.
So the court has considered the arguments made by the attorneys. The court has considered the statements made by the victims in this case. The court's going to find that the plea agreement is fair and reasonable under the circumstances. Investigators traced his movements to the remote oil site. On August 16, search teams discovered the bodies. Shanann Watts was found in a shallow grave near the oil site, while her daughters, Bella and Celeste, were recovered from separate crude oil tanks. Autopsies later confirmed Shanann was strangled, and the girls were smothered. Her unborn son, Nico, also died. In November 2018, Chris Watts pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty and received 5 life sentences without parole. The case remains a disturbing reminder of a family tragedy that shocked the world and deeply unsettled public opinion. It left behind unanswered questions about what truly drove the events and whether they were carefully planned or the result of a situation spiraling out of control. Even years later, people continue to revisit the case, trying to understand the motives and decisions that led to such a devastating outcome, with no simple explanation ever fully satisfying those questions.